History's greatest gamble, the global debt experiment. I don't know if you realize it, but right now we are living in the very center of the biggest, craziest financial experiment human history has ever seen. And the strange thing is, most of us aren't even aware that we are living inside it. We wake up in the morning, go to work, make expenses, but we don't see that massive wheel turning in the background. I am talking about global debt. The debt of governments, companies, yours, mine, your neighbors. In short, everyone's debt has exploded to levels that no civilization could have ever imagined before. Look at governments today. They are borrowing trillions of dollars as if they were spending the loose change in their pockets. As for central banks, they create money out of thin air by pressing a few keys on a keyboard. Printing money is no longer about printing paper in a printing press. It has become lining up zeros side by side on a computer screen. What do we ordinary people do? Families enter into 30-year home loans that mortgage their lives with the same ease as buying cheese and bread from the grocery store. And despite all this madness, we still talk about debt as if it were a very normal, very harmless, and infinitely sustainable lifestyle. But let's be honest with each other, the truth is much more disturbing. Debt has always been a tool of power, a weapon of control, and a ticking time bomb waiting for the right spark throughout history. The real question is not whether this massive mountain of global debt will lead to a crisis or not. That train has already left the station. The real question is when the crisis will explode and who the bill will be cut to, when the system is inevitably reset. If you want to understand how we got here, how this trap was set, we need to rewind the film a bit. Right to the very beginning, to the roots of civilization. Because what we call debt is actually as old as civilization. Let's go to Mesopotamia thousands of years before Christ. You know those first clay tablets found there, the ones we see in museums? They weren't poems, epics, or philosophical texts, as is thought. They were ledgers of credit. Plain and simple accounting records. It was a tally of who would give how much grain to whom, how many cattle were owed. In ancient societies, debt was not just an economic tool, it was also a sacred concept. Priests and kings were at the head of this business. They supervised the debts. But there was a very critical truth that the rulers in the ancient world knew, which modern leaders today insistently forget. You cannot enslave a people with debt forever. When things get out of hand, it is necessary to press the reset button so that society does not collapse. That is why they would declare general amnesties called jubilees and wipe out all debts. Just think. For society to remain standing, the financial system had to be periodically reset. Debt was power, yes, but too much of it was poison. The system would inevitably crack at some point. Ancient kings knew this. Let's fast forward time a bit. To the Renaissance period, to Florence, to these flashy days when bankers like the Medici family took the stage. Debt had ceased to be a grain or cow swap. It had turned into gold, silver, and credit. Kings, emperors, and popes borrowed like crazy to wage war, erect massive cathedrals, and expand their empires. But debt has an immutable rule. It carries risk. Think of the Spanish Empire, for example. Despite shiploads of silver coming from the New World, the American continent, and the treasury overflowing, because the Spanish royalty did not live within their means, they raised the bankruptcy flag exactly 4 times in the 16th century. This is the first great lesson history gives us. If your ambition goes beyond reality, even if your treasury is full of gold, you will drown in debt. The foundations of modern debt madness were actually laid in the 20th century. The landscape after the First World War was terrible. Nations were being crushed under debts that were mathematically impossible to repay. Remember Germany. With the Treaty of Versailles, they were condemned to such heavy war reparations that sensible economists of the period warned, "Don't do it. You will destroy this country. This debt cannot be paid." And they were right. Visualize that famous hyperinflation experienced in Germany in the early 1920s. Those chaos days when people carried money with wheelbarrows to be able to buy a loaf of bread. That disaster opened such deep wounds in German society that it birthed the anger and radicalism that ignited the fuse of the Second World War. So debt was not just an accounting error. It was the gasoline of chaos, the cause of wars. Then we come to the year 1944, to the Bretton Woods Conference. This is very important because the financial skeleton of the modern world was framed exactly here. The war is about to end. 2/3 of the gold in the world is in America's safe. They banged their fist on the table and set the rules. The dollar will be the world's anchor, and the ounce of gold will be fixed at $35. All other currencies will be indexed to the dollar. The idea was stability. But the reality was dependency. Now every government bond in the world, every economic plan was entrusted to America's promise to keep this discipline. For a while, this system worked like clockwork. But the human urge to spend, that is, to live beyond one's means, never ends. By the 1960s, America, between the costs of the Vietnam War and social programs within the country, started printing much more dollars than the gold it held. Foreign governments woke up. "Wait a minute," they said. "You are printing paper without backing. Take your papers, give us our gold." America was cornered. In 1971, President Richard Nixon came out, said, "That's it from me," and severed the dollar's link with gold. That moment is the moment the ropes broke, the moment today's madness began. 1971 was a silent revolution. Until that day, debt was a limited thing because gold was limited. But after that day, debt turned into an infinite thing. Once the gold break disappeared, central banks discovered playing with interest rates and printing money out of thin air to manage the economy. Did the economy slow down? Lower the interest rate, encourage everyone to borrow. Did a crisis break out? Print more money, patch the hole. But every rescue operation required a bigger debt mountain, a bigger leverage than the previous one. You remember the 2008 crisis, don't you? Most people think this was just about home loans, a small accident in the real estate market. It has nothing to do with it. This crisis was about piling debt upon debt, about the exaggeration of that financial gamble called leverage. Banks packaged mortgages and sold them. Bets were played on them. Risky businesses of 30 liras were done with 1 lira capital. In the end, when a single stone of that massive pyramid moved, the whole structure collapsed. What was the result? Banks were saved with trillions of dollars, while the bill was paid by the ordinary citizen who lost their job, home, and retirement. It became blatantly obvious that the debt mechanism is not a neutral tool, but a rigged order protecting the strong. From that day to this, the numbers are not just worrying or anything, they are at surreal levels. Global debt has tripled in the last 20 years, exceeding $300 trillion. This is not a joke. We are talking about a debt more than 4 times the total value of everything produced in the world, of all economies. Look at Japan. Public debt has exceeded 200% of national income. America adds trillions of dollars of new debt every year, and they don't even discuss this in the assembly. Developing countries borrow in foreign currency, and when interest rates rise, they come to the point of bankruptcy. The system relies entirely on this illusion. Debt can grow forever and nothing happens. But the universe has rules. Debt always has a price. Debt corrupts human behaviors. It creates economic bubbles. It transfers wealth from the poor to the rich. And the worst, the most immoral, it enslaves future generations. Every penny spent with debt today is actually a right stolen from tomorrow's labor, from your grandchildren's salary. When the numbers grow too big to be paid, history repeats itself. The debt spiral always, but always, ends in these three ways. You pay honestly, which is mathematically impossible with these current numbers. You create inflation. You lower the value of money and leave the debt bird-sized, tiny. You default. You say, "I am not paying, brother," and raise the bankruptcy flag. No empire, no superpower has been able to escape this reality. The current course shows that the preference is being used in the direction of inflation. Central banks may pose on television as if they are fighting inflation, but behind closed doors, indebted governments need this. Let the value of money melt so that those massive debts shrink in real terms. So who pays the price for this? You pay. We pay. Your salary melts. The price at the market increases. The savings you have accumulated for years evaporate. This is a hidden tax. And for politicians, it is a much easier, much more insidious way than coming out and saying, "We went bankrupt." Today's financial system floats completely on promises, promises impossible to keep. The debt of America, the father of the system, has exceeded $34 trillion as of 2024. The number is so big that our brain cannot perceive it. It feels abstract. But let me explain it like this. The money spent just to pay the interest of this debt competes with the country's defense budget. Think about it. The world's biggest superpower is taking new debt to be able to pay the interest of its old debt. What is this if not a Ponzi scheme? And this is not just America, Italy, Greece in Europe, China in Asia. The debts of local governments and companies in China are waiting like a massive bomb swept under the rug. Wherever you look, debt has spread like cancer. This trap is not only financial, but also psychological. Politicians love debt. They adore it. Why? Because debt buys time. If they increase taxes, the public rebels. If they cut spending, they lose votes. But borrowing, it seems painless for that moment. The logic of future generations will pay anyway works. This illusion works wonderfully until interest rates rise. But as we've seen since 2022, when interest rates rise, that free money era ends, and the bitter truth hits your face. Governments cannot make budgets. Families cannot pay loan installments. Companies go bankrupt. Debt is like a sleeping monster. It looks harmless while sleeping, but is deadly when it wakes up. And despite all these risks, it is still marketed to you that debt is the road to welfare. University students are advised to take tens of thousands of dollars in loans for diplomas whose usefulness is uncertain. Families are sold homes they cannot pay for by saying, "Real estate never loses. Squeeze yourself, buy it." States are told, "Give deficits. Don't be afraid. We will print money." This is the biggest lie of modern finance, the lie that debt is free, infinite, and safe. History, on the other hand, screams the exact opposite at the top of its voice. So, what is next? It is not hard to guess this for someone reading economic history. When debt exceeds the limits of reason, the escape routes are clear. Signs show that we will live through an inflationary period. They will try to get rid of debt by devaluing money. Your purchasing power, your labor, your savings will be sacrificed to keep the system standing. People always fall for this, because inflation comes slowly, insidiously. Because numbers are complex. Because the system has accustomed us to saying, debt is the state's problem, what is it to me? But here is the last and most important lesson to you. Debt is not just about the economy, it is about power. Who will lend, who will borrow, who will be saved when things go wrong is a matter of power. The financial system is designed in a way that the powerful rarely pay the price when debt becomes unbearable. Banks are saved, CEOs get their bonuses, politicians retire and write books. Ordinary people lose their homes, jobs, and hopes. That is why understanding debt is not just financial literacy. It is a matter of survival. If you don't see the trap, you become a victim of that system without even realizing that you are living with chains on your feet. So what will we do? Are we helpless? No. First step, get rid of illusions. Understand that debt is not a free resource, that every penny has a result. Second step, see the historical cycle. No empire could escape this reckoning, and it won't be able to escape this time either. Third step, protect yourself. I am not saying panic, sell everything, run to the mountain, but build real values that are not based only on paper promises, that are not between the two lips of states. Acquire assets that do not melt against inflation. See the lies of the system and take a position accordingly. Because the system will continue to repeat these mistakes. This is the lesson of history. Debt accumulates, leaders deny, the crisis explodes, and societies are reset. You have only one choice. Will you face this cycle with your eyes closed or awake? If you know the traps, you will be one of those who remains standing instead of being a victim. If you don't, you will pay the price for mistakes you never made. Global debt is not just a boring number mentioned in news bulletins. It is a pitch-black shadow that has descended upon our future. If we do not take lessons from history, it will crush us just as it crushed the civilizations before us. Keep your eyes open. History is full of answers, provided you know where to look. If what I have told here lit a light in your head, if it caused you to question some things, it means you are on the right path. Stay tuned, because we have much more to talk about.